When it comes to drawing, it is often the smaller details that can often be overlooked, and these little details often can enhance the three-dimensional qualities and the realistic nature of a drawing. And this is particularly true for any type of subject matter that has to do with water, whether it is a person who has been exposed to raindrops or whether it is a window with a bunch of little water droplets running along its surface. So with that being said, in this particular tutorial, we will be looking at a very specific detail, and that is how to draw a water drop. And now that we know what we're in store for, hey guys, my name is Matt. Welcome to another video by artincontext.org, where we explore a variety of different art related topics. And in today's tutorial, we will be looking at how to draw a water droplet with pencil. Now, what's interesting about a water droplet is it's really a matter of understanding light and shadow and looking at how to represent these very unique elements within a very specific natural structure, and that is a translucent water droplet. Now, we want to begin by understanding the basic principles associated with drawing a realistic water droplet. We do this by starting simple, by drawing a basic water drop shape. We want to see how the process of forming light and shadow is formed within the water drop before exploring different and more complex shapes. Now, once we understand the general process, forming a variety of different shapes when it comes to water droplets becomes much easier. So the next thing we want to do is we want to think about adding light and shading. Now, we want to create a light reflection on one side of the circle, which we will shade around. This little light reflection will form the shape of a little circle or curve shape and will be drawn in the circle. You want to keep it small and round, making sure it is on the side opposite to the shadow that the droplet is casting onto the surface. Now, the next step is we want to add some darker shading, and this is where we darken our shadows with some darker shading. We can use something softer like a 2B or 3B pencil for this process. And the intention here is we want to darken the shadow that is in the circle. So making a smooth transition from dark to light, we will kind of establish this kind of seamless gradient between the shadowed and the highlighted area. We want the shadow in the circle to be as seamless as possible, and naturally this is going to give the water droplet a more realistic quality of that shadow transition. We also want the shadow to be dark on one side of the circle and lighten as it moves to the other side of the circle. So again, making sure that it is dark on one side and then slowly becomes lighter as it moves to the highlighted section. We should be left with the circle that has a dark rim of shading and seamlessly fades into a no shading area or a highlighted area on the other side of the water droplet shape. We should have a shadow on the outside of the circle, on the side of the unshaded area that is basically cast on the surface on which the water droplet is placed. And then lastly, we should have a light spot in the shadowed area, kind of a highlight, a negative space in that shadowed area, and that's basically going to create this concept of a reflection of the light source along that surface area where the shadowed side is. Now, the shadowed and the light form differently in a water droplet from that of a solid object, and this is because the water drop is a transparent or translucent structure, which means the shadows and lights kind of refract and move through and around the object in a strange way. So this is why we want to represent a highlight in the shadowed area and then create these shadow or these seamless transitions from the shadowed area to the highlighted side of that water droplet. And then lastly, we just want to make sure that there is a slight shadowing near the highlighted section with a little bit of negative space in the shadow that forms along the surface that the water droplet is placed on. Now that we understand the general concept, we're going to play around with drawing different water droplet shapes. So we can now be a little playful with our water droplets by giving them different curvatures in their form. Playing around with different forms of water droplets can provide you also with the challenge of adding the techniques you have just learned to different shapes of water droplets. So again, the first step is to sketch the water drop. So we can begin by sketching our water droplets. As you sketch on your water droplets, try to make them different in size, maybe one large, medium, and small in comparison to one another. And again, this is just to provide you with the challenge of using the knowledge you have just learned and applying it to different and unique shapes. However, that being said, try to keep it simple to obviously keep it quite easy for yourself during this tutorial. Obviously, we're just trying to break down the basic process of how to establish water droplets. So maybe consider making these circular shapes or bean shapes, but try and keep it simple. Again, the next thing we're going to do is adding light and shading. Now, once you have the shape of your water droplet, you can start to work on the different elements like the shadow in and around the droplet, as well as the little reflection of light. Again, that little reflection should be a negative space in the shaded or shadowed area. Remember, we also want to start light, so start working with the HP pencil to kind of establish that shadow gradients from dark to light first, and then you can slowly start to darken those shadows with something softer like a 2B or a 3B pencil. From there, you can apply more shading to darker your shadows once you've established this lighter shading. Again, you can slowly start to think about creating those seamless gradients from the shadowed side of your water droplet to the exposed or lighter side of the water droplet. And then from there, it's a matter of, again, working in that shadow formation near the highlighted area to kind of create that quality of a translucent structure, warping and distorting the way light gets refracted within the structure. So what we are trying to achieve here is this circular structure to establish the water droplet. Then we are kind of shading in the structure and creating a highlight in the shaded area within the structure, and then outside the structure near the highlighted area or the lightest part of that water droplet, we create a shadow formation on the surface that the water droplet is resting on to establish this quality of it kind of casting a shadow on the surface that it is rested on. So now that you understand the process of drawing realistic water droplets, you can use these techniques to practice and apply them to other shapes. However, some water droplet shapes can be more complex, so we do want to think about the kind of realistic nature of how water droplets kind of form. So they tend to be quite circular or arrowhead shaped, but you can apply these now, or these concepts, to some complex water droplet shapes. And the process will always start the same. When you create a light water droplet sketch, you want to focus on the outline of the shape regardless of how complex the shape is, and then from there it's about capturing what you see through the water droplet and how that is represented in a drawing. So this often means that there will be a different tonal variation as the droplet distorts the surfaces that it interacts with, and this can create sharp lines that form within the droplet. Again, it also has the ability to reflect its surrounding environment, so naturally we do want to take that into consideration as we proceed with these more complex water droplet shapes. However, the concept of light and shadow formation is still fundamentally the same. There will always be a single light source that provides a reflection of light, and there will always be a shadowing in and around the droplets. So we always want to make sure we are developing shadow formations inside the droplets and then on the outside of the droplet near the highlighted section. Once you configure the shape and different shadow gradients, it's a matter of refining your shading, and this is where we can integrate darker shading to kind of create a more seamless transition between the shadowed and highlighted area. But otherwise, guys, this is the basic process of how to define or establish some water droplets through a drawing process using pencil. Some key concepts to think about is, number one, a water droplet is a translucent structure that has the ability to distort light and shadow. So this means that we always want to consider this very unique element of shading inside the structure, where we have a shadowed side and a highlighted side. In the shadowed side inside the structure, we'll always have a highlight, and then along the outside near of the structure, near the highlighted section, we will have another shadow formation that kind of has a highlight in it as well, and that's the shadow that is cast on the surface area that that water droplet is resting on. But otherwise, guys, this is the basic process. I hope this video was simple and informative. I hope you can take this drawing process and utilize this process of creating water droplets to kind of add to your own drawings. Again, you can use water droplets in so many different ways, whether it is little details on a face or whether it's little details running along a surface like a window or a car. It's really up to you, but this little feature can be used in so many different ways, and I hope this tutorial provided you with some knowledge in terms of how to establish it in a realistic way. But otherwise, guys, that is it from me today. If you did find this video interesting, please let us know in the comment section below if you would like any more videos related to this kind of topic and how to kind of create these very small and unique unique details in realistic ways. If you did like it, please drop a like and subscribe. This helps us to grow the channel and ultimately enables us to make more art related content for you guys. But otherwise, that is it from me today. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.